most of the people in the space so adamant in being different and the traditional art space, and we don't need them. We don't need these like traditional art institutions or auction houses or museums. We don't need anyone. But whenever someone entered the space, everyone celebrated, tried to enforce their old world traditions and rules. We accepted them.
Yeah.
So, in the end of the day, digital art is a miniature of the traditional art world. We've ended up being the same as what we didn't want to become.
Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Kalos Podcast. Today, I had a fantastic conversation with Giannis Sourdis, who is an investor, advisor, and digital art collector. Giannis shared his journey from discovering crypto and NFTs and how he has been building one of the most amazing digital art collectors in the space. He also shared his opinion about the state of the digital art market, some of his favorite artists, and a bit of his strategy when investing and collecting art. Thanks again for tuning in, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode if you enjoyed. Hello, Giannis. So good to have you on the show. How are you?
Hello, hello. I'm great, doing good. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Trying to keep up with everything that's happening. And yeah, I was looking forward to this chat because you have been around for many years. I've been to a couple of events and you have been there. And you're somebody that's very active in the space and know a lot about digital art and crypto in general. So yeah, I was looking forward to this chat. Where are you today, Yanis? Where in the world are you?
I'm thankfully in Athens and in my home for a bit until mid-November. I'm probably going to be at Marfa, so excited about
Ah,
that. But for now, yeah, in Greece.
nice, Marfa. Yeah, that's one of the events that I haven't been that I really need to go. It's yeah, it takes time to plan ahead, especially if you're in Europe, like you and me.
Yeah.
Will this be your first time in Marfa, or have you been there before?
It's gonna be my first time. You're right, it's a huge journey for us in the EU. I actually decided I was gonna go 2 weeks ago. It falls in line with most of my trips, which are organized 1 to 2 weeks before. But yeah, I'm super excited about that. I've never been. I think this year is gonna be a good one because of, in theory, us still being in a bear market. I
Mm.
think it's gonna be a good crowd. Not that it wasn't the other years, but I think this year it's gonna be truly the passionate people of the space that are gonna attend.
Yeah, definitely. If you are there during the bear market years, yeah, you love what's happening in the space, right? And you love either collecting or creating digital art. Yeah, sounds like a great time to be there. How complex was it to coordinate that trip? Because you have to take a couple of flights. You probably have to rent a car, book hotels. Was it complex, Yanis, or how much time did it take?
It didn't take much because I just have to book my tickets, like the flight tickets, and rent a car from, I think it's El Paso until Marfa. A good friend of mine offered a spare room in Marfa, so I didn't have to look for accommodation. So thank you to Redbeard for hooking me up. But yeah, it's not that difficult of a procedure. It's more, I think, of a mental decision that I'm doing this. It's a big trip. It's going to be like a mini adventure, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, and what are you looking forward to doing, Marfa? Because I know there is couple of side events. So Art Blocks puts together the main show in their gallery, and there are talks, but there are also other galleries like Glitch Marfa is going to be doing some exciting things there. So, what are you looking for? What do you do in these kind of trips when you go to these trips for digital art exhibitions, talks? Anything in particular that you are looking forward?
The number one reason I attend these events are to meet all these amazing people that I've been talking to for years online. Some of them I consider really close friends up to this point. So it's always good to be able to see them IRL, talk to them, hang out, have a good time, chat about the space. Because here in Greece, sadly, I don't see many of these people. There's not many events to attend to. So for me, it's the number one thing is to see all these amazing people, but also see some great art and be able to experience again stuff that I don't get to experience back in Athens.
hmm Yeah, makes sense. Similar. I also live in Spain. In Spain, there are actually
There have been a couple of events over the past year, so it's getting more active. But I live in the north of Spain, so in the city where I'm living, it's not there are not many things so far, right? And it's a small city, so it's understandable. But yeah, Gianni, so let's go back maybe to your beginnings in crypto and digital art, because you have been around for many years. I think you started collecting teen, is what I was reading. So I'm just very curious. How did you get into this space? What attracted you into crypto and NFTs and digital art?
Hello, guys. I just wanted to take some time to remind you about my NFT subscription via Hypersub. All subscribers get access to my token gated newsletter articles. You also get the podcast episodes airdropped into your crypto wallet. 8% of the revenue is shared across all subscribers. You also get access to my Discord server and participate in monthly giveaways and allow list opportunities. You can cancel at any time, and also you can control the length. You can go on a month to month basis, or you can get a whole year at once. This is also how I can keep going with the newsletter and podcast, and your support really means a lot. Find the link in the show notes below, and you can always DM me through my social networks if you have any questions. Thanks for your support.
Started investing in stocks when I was in university in 2012, 13. That was a completely different game. I started on my own, learning and investing slowly with some guidance from my father, but overall trying to navigate the stock space by myself. All that until 2016 when I came back to Greece after my studies, after my master's degree. That's when I started to look into Bitcoin and mining. That was the second time I looked into Bitcoin. The first time was in 2011 when many of my friends were using it to gamble. So when I first saw it, I thought it was a scam. Fast forward 5 years later, I was looking into mining it. Still wasn't a believer at the time, but I saw an opportunity. We didn't go forward with this small mining operation, but a few months later, half a year later, a good friend of mine from the US was telling me about Ethereum. He was claiming at the time that it was the next Bitcoin and I should pay close attention. I didn't think much of it. And then a few months later, the price of Ethereum had gone up 3x. That's when I told myself, it's time to go all in this space. I don't want to miss this big opportunity that's in front of me. I cashed out completely from the stock market and put all my money in crypto, started doing ICOs, started day trading, becoming slowly and organically part of the community, researching about the space. And as I entered with money in my mind, I ended up staying because of the philosophy and the belief system that is blockchain and Bitcoin and the financial freedom that it provides us. A few months later, stumbled upon Gods Unchained, which was a trading card game on the blockchain similar to Hearthstone. And as a gamer, since I can remember myself, like my first memories are from me playing on my Game Boy and
Yeah.
Nintendo 64. Um, it immediately clicked in my mind that blockchain was and is going to be, was going to be, and is the perfect match for gaming when it comes to verifying assets, provenance, proof of authenticity, efficiency in terms of transactions, transparency, all the things that blockchain provides was like a perfect fit for gaming. So when I saw Gods Unchained and I could actually own the assets, they were scarce assets, and I could use them in game, that's when, for me, NFTs first clicked. It wasn't the art side, it was the gaming side. I started by collecting Gods Unchained cards, and eventually, fast forward a few years, in 2020, I started collecting digital art. It actually started with me collecting physical art, crypto art. My first two pieces were pieces by Pascal Boyard and Trevor Jones,
Okay.
but physical editions bought with crypto at the time. That was in 2019. And then in 2020, after investing some money, not investing, but buying some rarible coins at the time and making a very decent profit from that, I decided to reinvest that money or part of that money into NFTs, digital art. And that's how I started in this space.
No, that's an exciting journey. So when you said you collected Trevor Jones, this physical work, so how was it in 2019? What was the process like? Which platform was around? Or was it like directly with Trevor, or how was the procedure back then?
I don't 100% remember. I remember using this platform called Open Bazaar, something Bazaar. And I remember I had to create an account there. And then, if I remember correctly, I needed to deposit with BTC and send it through their platform. So they acted as an escrow. My mind isn't great. I don't have the best memory, but I think that's roughly how it went. With Pascal, I think I reached out directly after seeing this set of two prints on my timeline on Twitter by another investor collector, and I think that's how it went. I'm not 100% sure, but it was either involving me reaching out directly or going through this platform
Mhm.
called Open Bazaar.
Okay. Yeah, I know there because I joined the space in 2021, right? So this was 2 years before that. And when I joined, basically things were happening on OpenSea. There was a bit of known origin. R blocks was getting started. Super Rare was there already. Foundation, but things have moved so fast. And from that time, Giannis in 2019 to when did you feel like we are everything is getting really hot? There are people joining every day, from artists to collectors. When did you notice that? Was that in 2020 or was it in 2021? What can you remember from those, from the time when everything exploded? When did you feel that?
I got in the summer of 2020. That's when I started actively collecting like more of trash art and meme art and stuff like that. I think at that time, like around September of 2020, when I started exploring all these other platforms, like you mentioned, async art and known origin and maker's place and rarible, of course, and super rare. I think at that time it was like a small handful of people at the time collecting. It was the same people again and again, beating each other in auctions. It was a very fun time. I think it was one of the purest times that I felt in crypto. But shortly after that, I would say November, things started to pick up a bit on mostly on the art side. And I think I really felt the heat after Christmas. So January, February, and March of 2021, that's when things really, I felt the surge of people coming in. I saw NFTs, blockchain, crypto mentioned in traditional media. Friends of mine would say, "Oh, are you in NFTs? What's that? Explain it to me."
Hmm.
I think, yeah, that's when I really felt it, because before that, it was felt more like a bunch of like friends, even though we weren't
Hmm.
really all of us friends trying to support artists and collect stuff that we really like.
Would you say you had, like, when you were doing this, because you come from an investor, right? So you were trading stocks and you came into crypto with an investor mindset.
Mm.
And then you saw that the boom from the NFTs and the and digital art from the beginning, and you started to collect art, right? So do you have a strategy, Giannis? So you approach collecting NFTs with the same mindset as when you approach investing in crypto, investing in stocks, or is it different?
I would say that in the last 4 years of collecting art and specifically NFTs, it's changed a lot. It really did just start with me saying, I'll reinvest some profits into this. I'll have a specific budget for every week. I'm going to purely collect just things that I like for fun with no monetary gain in mind. That really changed quickly because of the nature of Rarible at the time. There was room to like collect stuff and flip them in the same day for multiple X's. And I slowly transitioned, actually not slowly, quickly transitioned into that. But again, very quickly realized that this was starting to become more than just either an investment or just doing it for fun, as I started blowing my weekly budget daily on art and I started liquidating coins that I had in order to buy art. So really quickly, it's from fun to serious to a mix of both, I
Hmm.
would say, where I would start being interested in the OGs of NFTs, the OGs of computer art, researching who did stuff first or who is doing something unique. So it evolved into how I am today, where I mostly collect based on what I love and what I like. And the artist is a big part of that equation. And when I say the art, it's the person behind the art,
Mm,
not in terms of necessarily if they're a good businessman or businesswoman or a good marketeer, but are they a good person? Because I think
mhm.
that has something to do with it as well. I 100% want to support an artist who is an amazing human being as well.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
makes it way easier for me as well. But I think the criteria I have is they're pretty basic. They're collect innovative, on-chain, aesthetically pleasing art. That's like the main criteria. I will mostly collect stuff that I purely enjoy without thinking of them as investments, how they would perform in the short term or the long term. But it's not very easy to do, especially in my position, when we're talking about very expensive pieces of art, because then the financial part becomes a big issue.
Mhm.
So you do have to weigh, apart from, is it aesthetically pleasing, is it innovative, is it interesting, does it speak to you, there has to be the, will it be a good investment in 5, 10, 15, 100
Right.
years. So yeah, overall, just collect what I like. But when we're talking about big investments, I try to look into everything, not just if I like it, if it speaks to me, etc.
Hmm. Yeah, of course. There comes to a point, a price point that it's a lot of money, right? Many NFTs and many artists have found a lot of success. Their pieces are there is a lot of demand, and if you're gonna put your money into that artist, you need to consider different factors. Even if you love the piece, if you love the art, if you like the person, as you said, you need to consider some things. And if we're talking about these high investments, Yanis, can you elaborate a little bit more into what you look for? Let's say there is an expensive piece of art that you want to grab it, you want to collect it. What needs to be there? Because in this case, it's not only that you like the art, there are other factors, as you mentioned. So, what are those factors? You said it's simple, but can you elaborate? What do you look for when it comes to high investments in digital art?
There's also another thing I do look into when collecting these more expensive pieces. It's it also depends a bit on my personal liquidity at the time, the part of the cycle that we're in. For example, right now, I'm trying to be more conservative with how I collect because I know we're in the cusp of a bull market. I would much rather have my money in liquid investments that I can cash out at any time and reinvest in stuff that I want, and investing in things that have more short-term gain. So that
Mhm.
would be crypto and not NFTs, because I'm in the end of the day, I need to generate more liquidity
Mhm.
to fund my art endeavors. So, there's non-art stuff to bear in mind when
Yeah.
collecting art. I'm sure all of us would love to collect 1,000 pieces, thousands of pieces actually, but we have to curate in a way what we collect. My list of artists that I want to collect is in the hundreds. It's not really an easy task to say, okay, I'm going to prioritize these artists, because it really depends on the opportunities that arise in the space,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
you never know what will come up next week or in a month. Also, patience is another big one. I think we've all seen it multiple times in the space that when something is hot, when it's especially early, it tends to cool down, and
Yeah.
there is a buying opportunity way lower than you would ever expect it to be.
Yeah.
These non-art related stuff, patience and the financial side is very important. But for me personally, when we're talking about art related criteria, it would be, for me, a focus on generative and AI. So I have a tendency to collect generative or AI pieces or collections because that is what speaks to me more. It reminds me of the early computer days, and I think generative art is the kind of art that looks and feels like the early days of computer art, and that's something that appeals to me a lot. I like the simplicity. I find beauty in it. Many of my Web2 friends will see many of the pieces I collect, and they're gonna say, "I don't understand why you're buying these. This is just a few lines on
Mm.
paper." But it's so much deeper than that. They don't understand it. It's fine. It's not supposed. to be like that. Not everyone gets
Yeah.
generative art, and that's a beauty I find in it. So I tend to focus on these two niches, but I try to collect things that are either innovating.
Mhm.
So are they utilizing blockchain as a medium in an interesting way, something that hasn't been done, something that allows them to do to unleash their creativity in ways that they couldn't do before blockchain, because that is what blockchain does. It elevates art in a way that wasn't doable before. So
Mhm.
when stuff like this happens, it really interests me, and I do want to collect pieces that
Yeah.
do have these innovations in mind. Apart from that, I would say I look for stuff that hasn't been done before in terms of like art styles, or if it has been done before, it's okay if it has been done before. Like you can't be 100% um, uh, original. In the end of the
Yeah.
day, we're always influenced by our surroundings, so everything is a mix of our own creativity and other people's creativity. I either want to see something that I've never seen before in terms of an art style or of a concept of a series that an artist explores for a year or a few years, or something if it has done before, it has its own twist.
Yeah.
Um, you can easily identify that this artist has done this piece without even knowing about it. That's what I really love. And especially when it happens across different styles, which is the hardest thing to do. Have your artistic touch that everyone recognizes, even if
Yeah.
it's this series or this other series. I think the most important is, does a piece instantly speak to me in one way or another? Does it create this feeling of does it make me feel unsettling and scared and disgusted, but in a nice way? For
Mhm.
example, these pieces really intrigue me. Like, for example, Joe Pease. The first time I saw one of his pieces was in Proof of People in London, I think 2 years ago, where I sat in front of his piece for hours, not in a I went there a few times. Like I went back to it. I was looking at it for 15, 20 minutes. I left. I came back to it. And I remember it made me feel this weird feeling, not in a bad way, but like I was unsettled. I was like, this piece evokes
Mm.
something in me. That's what I want to collect.
Very complete description, Giannis. And will you have other artists in mind that reflect these points that you just mentioned? Any in generative art, but could also be in AI art.
Definitely, definitely. There's quite a few of them, and I'm gonna say that the majority of them is underlooked. Like many of these artists who check all these boxes for me are usually artists who are not on the spotlight, have not been mega pumped by the cabal or whatever. It's artists who are doing their thing. They're not all the time selling out. They're not in a hurry. They've been doing this for years already. They know the game, and
Mhm.
I'm sure that for many of them, one day the recognition they deserve will come. Definitely one of them is Oria Harvey. Her work is so diverse. She experiments and has experimented and has played with different mediums. She's like, even behind me, you can see one of her sculptures, which has been born from digital art. I think all these artists who are playing with all these different concepts, like Oria, like one of her recent collection on Tezos, which is it's called Me and My Ghost, something like that. I might be wrong. Don't.
Yeah, we'll add this to the show notes. So
Yeah.
if anybody wants to check it out, you can find the collection there.
Exactly. It's a collection based on pictures taken through her webcam in 2001 through her own generative algorithm. Stuff like that to me is super interesting, not just because it's been done early, like many years ago, but even the collection itself is so diverse and it's so multi-layered from so many perspectives. Like for me, like this is something that not many people see, not many people care until it's super too late. But yeah, artists like Oria for me, dude, she definitely checks all the boxes. There's so many artists, and that's why whenever someone asks me about a question like this, or like a question like, who is your favorite artist? I can never answer that because there's dozens and dozens of artists that I want to name. And I feel that if I name a few, I'm, you
Yeah,
know,
you're missing out. You're
yeah,
leaving some behind. I know it's a, that's a tricky part. No, but that makes sense, Giannis. And you mentioned Tezos, and I think both of us are big fans of some of the art on Tezos across the years. Can you tell us what made you jump into Tezos? What was the reason why you started to collect on Tezos and build such a big collection there? And yeah, let's start there. Why were you collecting on Tezos? What is it about this blockchain and the platforms and the artists, the community there that attracted you?
Okay, so I was always a fan of Tezos in terms of the community that the art site had, the how enthusiastic everyone was, the innovations that were happening there. It was very grassroots movement. I wasn't a big fan of the project itself, having seen and experienced it firsthand in 2017 when they did their ICO. So I wasn't a fan. I never invested, didn't want to at the time, but slowly seeing this movement with Tezos happening on the art side, I in the beginning I just dismissed it. I said I'm not a fan of the blockchain, so I'm not going to collect there, which was my the way I operated even until today. Actually, the way I operate. But I didn't like the blockchain. I didn't want to have anything to do with it, even though I did want to collect so many great pieces because the quality of art on Tezos at the time and still is today is so high and so good that at some point, because of my love for a specific artist, Zankan, who wasn't willing to do any drops on Ethereum because of the environmental issues that it had at the time, he told me, "You're more than free to collect anything on Tezos." So at some point, I couldn't not be part of this movement and not collect all this amazing, beautiful art. And not just very beautiful and amazing and in some cases innovating, but also very cheap.
Yeah.
So I did hop on the bandwagon with my anonymous account, which at the time was called I Don't Like Tez. Um, and it became, my new addiction per se. It was so easy to collect so many pieces and feel fulfillment for collecting and supporting so many artists and not needing a ton of money to do it, which eventually led to me collecting thousands of pieces on Tezos, maybe not thousands, but 1 to 2,000 for sure. And yeah, still supporting and collecting on Tezos. And I do believe in its longevity and its future, but I believe in it in terms of from an art perspective, not necessarily
Right.
from a DeFi or something else.
Yeah, no, you describe it pretty well. One of the reasons, so Tesos had this, the environmental thing attracted many artists to this blockchain. Then the prices, so the gas fees were basically non-existent, and then also the art per se was affordable, right? And eventually, as more people started to collect, prices went up, but not closer to what we saw on Ethereum and during those years.
Yeah.
Now, if we describe, I think we did a great job describing your beginnings and what attracted you to the space, what you look for in art. Tesos, which was a very important blockchain in terms of art for collecting. Now, Giannis, where are we today? So, where do you think we are in at this moment? What are you looking for? Are you spending the same amount of time and maybe even the same amount of resources investing your budget? You mentioned your weekly budget. Have these changed over time, or are you spending the same amount into digital art? So, where is your mind at today in 2024, towards the end of 2024?
After my first month in NFTs, I stopped having a budget because I realized I could never adhere to a budget. But yeah, the landscape has changed immensely in the last 4 years. It feels every month it's something different. Even AI art actually started picking up pace this year, even though it's existed on chain for a while now,
Mm,
or at least on the blockchain, not necessarily on chain. Um, there's definitely trends. I think right now AI is pretty hot. All the big collectors and all the big funds are collecting AI art. In my mind, I've also shifted a bit more on AI, not because everyone else is doing it, obviously, but because I think I did go really deep into the generative art side, which I still love and it's still my passion. But
mm,
I felt that personally at the time, at some point, I had been over collecting on the gen art side. I want to have more exposure on AI and other forms of digital art as well. Overall, I would say the landscape is in a weird place. I think, as you said, with many marketplaces shutting down, which was predicted by many people, including Artnome,
Yeah.
a few years ago. I didn't expect to see very big players shutting down because it's a shame, a big shame, seeing projects like Async Art, which was innovating ahead ahead of its time 100%, never got the recognition and the volume it deserved. And also came another OG
Yeah.
project that really felt like it was one of the marketplaces that was trying for every artist on their platform and not just like the top sellers,
Yeah.
etc. So it's a shame to see all these great projects shut down. But I think, it's more than natural. It was going to happen, especially when, in crypto, when the bull comes in and it rolls in, everyone's expectation is set super high. Everyone spends more money, their budgets increase, they hire more people. This is a general issue with the space. We're
Yeah.
very short-sighted. We're focused on the short term while we should be focusing on the long term. And the same is true for the art space. People are concerned with the short-term gain. Either they're a business or an artist or a collector. Not that much on the artist side, I would say. There are some artists who are focused on the short term, but yeah, maybe most of them are uh, focused on the long term. But this creates many problems, and one of the main problems it creates is that we're starting to see, I think, for a while now, but it keeps on happening and not going away. We're seeing a lot of collectors from Web3 starting to get tapped out, meaning that
Mhm.
they can't collect what they want to collect anymore, either because the prices have gone up or because they don't have the liquidity. Or because of all the private sales, they don't get their hands on pieces that they want because they're sold out on pre-sales or whatever.
Mhm.
And at some point, these collectors tap out. They say, I can't do this anymore, or I'm taking a break, or I'm just going to collect very specific stuff. And drops don't sell out. Artists get frustrated. Web 2 institutions get frustrated. Web 3, Web 2.5, everyone starts getting frustrated. And this, you can feel that in the air, in the atmosphere, even online. It's because on IRL, it's way more laid back. Everyone's more happy that they're together. And maybe you don't feel that there, but online, you feel it. And I think that's one of the core issues that are contributing to that issue. We're not doing a great job attracting traditional art collectors. We're not
Yeah.
trying to penetrate that market, which is massive from either a collector or a financial perspective.
Yeah.
And even Web 2 institutions are not risking their reputation. They're not utilizing their main marketing channels. They're not tapping into their Web 2
Yeah.
or traditional art clientele because they don't want to risk it at all, but they do want to reap the benefits. And
Mhm.
that, as a result, is tapping the Web 3 collector out completely.
Yeah, that's before we started recording. I mentioned some of your tweets, which I think were in this direction,
Yeah.
that you have seen some behavior that we need to call out. That, and I think you just describe it right. That some institutions are, as you said, trying to reap the benefits, but are not really risking and taking risks in the space, or not embracing it to a full degree, right? So, are there other behaviors that you think we should call out from collectors, institutions, companies, maybe even artists? Anything that comes to mind that is slowing down or not helping the digital or the NFT markets in the space move forward?
Yeah, I think first of all, I would say something I've been saying for years, and this includes me as well. I am doing my best, but this includes me as well, is education in the space. We need more proper thesis, papers on artists, period, art styles. We need more stuff on digital art. We need people to get educated on it. Stuff like what you're doing with podcasts, articles, interviews, all this stuff helps a lot. But we need first of all the creation of this content, and then we need the consumption of this content in order for people to be more educated, not be susceptible to just listening and trusting whatever people tell them, because this is a good segue to my next point, which is there's so many opportunists in the space, and it's
Hmm.
very natural because when there's something new, the first people that flock to it are opportunists. The same thing
Mhm.
happened with blockchain and crypto. The same thing happened with the internet, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of opportunists that only care about their own financial gain, essentially. So what they are doing is spreading essentially misinformation about artists, about firsts in the space, about importance of specific artists, etc.,
Mm,
which is very naive, but for many it's also malicious because
mm,
they are purely doing this to pump their bags in web3 lingo. It's they don't care about the art, they don't care about the space, and they don't care about the artist. They only care about pumping their bags. I'm sure some of them are naive, some of them are not educated, and in the end of the day, it's so easy to say something online than say it offline because
yeah.
there's way more consequences saying it offline. But again, I will never name names, especially like
Mhm.
in an interview like this, but I've been seeing people claim things online that are mind boggling. We're talking about artists, for example, and we're talking about them like they're the next Picasso or the next whoever, insert whichever huge name you want, while many of them have been doing art professionally for 2, 3, 4 years. And I've seen people call specific artists some of the most important living artists right now. Even if that was remotely true, even if that artist truly was so innovative, amazing, and huge, whatever, groundbreaking, and all that great stuff, how are you so 100% sure to make such a bold statement 1 or 3 years since they started doing art? I find it like I would never say that about any artist, even the artists have the biggest conviction in. I might say, I think they're going to become huge. I'm sure that X and Y are going to end up in museums and in huge collections in 20, 30, 50 years. I know I would never publicly state something of that magnitude. I think it's
Yeah.
either too naive or very opportunistic, and both are wrong. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an issue that in this case is affecting digital art, but it's a trust issue that we have in general in crypto. And we see these with meme coins to normal coins to blockchains, in this case, digital art, where people are having trouble trusting each other and figuring out if what you are saying is genuine, if you really believe that or not, or if you are just pumping your bags, as you said, right? And what are the intentions behind your message? And especially once you get to a certain degree that you build an audience, that you have people actually paying attention to what you're saying, who do you trust? And it's an issue. And in this case, yeah, you define it very well. But I don't see how we can overcome this. It's a really tough problem, to be honest, because who do you trust? And then everybody's meeting online, but you don't really know who he is in reality or she, and what kind of bags, what is he or she collecting, what are her intentions or his intentions, who is he connected to, right? Which other institutions are behind. So it's a very complex problem, and I feel the only solution is for people that are trying to spread the right message to keep doing it, build a reputation, build trust with their audience over a long period of time. Not sure if you have an idea on how can we solve this.
You're 100% right. I'm not really sure how we can solve it 100%, but I'll just say that if you go to a few art events, like NFT events, you can start realizing who is backed by who has interest in what. Like it only requires 2 to 3 events. If you attend 2 and 3 of them and you are even a bit social and you start talking around and meeting all these people that you've been talking to for years anyway, it becomes really quickly evident who is who and who is doing what for what reason.
I agree, and especially with the fonts, there are fonts, and what is different from the traditional art world in this respect, in this point in particular.
Nothing. And this is one of the funniest things about our space. We were all, everyone, I think, or most of the people in the space, so adamant in being different, and we don't like in being different to the traditional art space, and we don't need them. We don't need these like traditional art institutions or auction houses or museums. We don't need anyone. But whenever someone entered the space, everyone celebrated. They Whenever they try to enforce their old world traditions and rules, we accepted them. So
Yeah.
in the end of the day, Web3 is not Web3, but digital art in NFTs is a miniature of the traditional art world. It has some differences, obviously, but ended up being the same as what we didn't want to become. We want to be something completely different, but we're not. We've fallen in the same pitfalls as traditional art.
Yeah, no, makes sense. And it's a challenge. And yeah, we'll see how it evolves. I think we just need to wait and see. I also feel like there are some institutions, there are some people that are building, they are experienced and they are educated in the art world, and they are doing it right. They are, in a way, pushing the space forward in the right direction. And again, I don't want to name anybody, but there are some positive things, especially with this bear market. The people that are still here is because they really enjoy it and they care, right? And we'll see that evolution over time. Giannis, two more questions. So one, you mentioned AI art as something you are interested these days. I wonder if you have some input on where are you collecting AI art? Where should people look if they are starting their journey or if they just want to expand a bit more? Where do you think people can find AI artists and start to navigate the AI art space?
I think a great place to start is just browse and read up on stuff that are on the fellowship site. I think fellowship are killing it. I have no affiliation with them, but I started collecting on their platform due to their dailies
Mhm.
where they have a roster of artists who post art pieces daily, and not the same artist every day, but there's a constant flow of really interesting experimental AI art, but also they are doing the retroactive mints like Align Draw, and then they did the Holly and Matt, and now they're doing Trevor's work. I really find that interesting. That's a big debate about retroactive mints, but I'm not going to get into that. But I think they're doing a great job. They're holding the flag high, and they conduct great events. They are trying to do what I was saying before that most aren't: education, either through books, papers, publishings, etc. They are trying to penetrate the traditional art world as
Yeah.
well, which is something that we do need Web3 projects to do. I would also say um, Braindrops, great place to find really interesting series of works by very great artists, which many of them are still under the radar. And then Foundation definitely has a great roster and selection of AI works, but I would argue that there isn't one place to go and find all the information you need. The same with crypto and NFTs is that you really need to put in the time and do your research, starting from Twitter, maybe from a thread, picking a few keywords, artists, movements, methods, and then doing your research on it. Books are also a great way to get into it. I wouldn't say necessarily so you can find art pieces and artworks and artists, but to learn more about the movement.
Yeah, no, that I think you summarize it pretty well. I'm also a big fan of Fellowship, Braindrops, Foundation, had Cave on the podcast. Alejandro from Fellowship was also on the podcast and also wrote a couple of articles. Foundation recently had a rodeo. Paradigm, I don't know, what are your thoughts there? It's more like cheaper mints, more social, leaning into social dynamics, but could be another way of onboarding people, right? I know there are some people against it. What are your thoughts there on this kind of dynamics, Yanni?
I'm definitely a fan, like the social mix in there. I like affordable art, just like the every other person. That's why I liked what happened in AVAX a lot of months ago, actually, with oh my God, I forget the
Was it zero one? Was it zero
yeah,
one?
yeah,
Yeah.
01. That was also a great platform. They still are, and from what I see, they are trying to do exactly what you're saying, like tap into the more traditional crowd. I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think it's not a place where you're gonna find super quality works because it's a place for artists to post sketches or WIPs, or even if they do post more finished work, I don't think they're going to be posting their masterpieces on these platforms, if you understand what I mean.
Mhm.
First of all, because they are giving it out for free or for a very low price. And then because they are on L2s, I do see them more as collectibles than art per se. They, in my mind, it's more similar to a poster from a show or a
Yeah.
catalog which is signed by the artist from a certain exhibition. I don't think we're going to see insane value coming out from these platforms. There are going to be exceptions, I'm sure, but in its majority, we're not going to see something price-wise, value-wise coming
Yeah.
out from these platforms. But I love what they're doing. I try to hop on there from time to time and collect from artists I really like, but I can't say I'm super active on these platforms.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that they, in terms of as an investor, probably not the best place, right, to invest. It has interesting value proposition that it could bring more people to the space and also could be a place to experiment for artists without thinking too much about it or sharing their secondary or third or sketches, right? So I think it's has an interesting proposition. Giannis, it's been a pleasure. We This was the hour went really quick. This was very interesting. I wanted to tackle on other topics, but I think this hour was perfect, and we will have to do another episode talk about gaming and your projects. But I think it was a great learning, and I think we think alike many topics. So thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing everything. Not sure if you want to talk about your next project that you briefly told me, or anything you want to say about that.
I can't share much. I'm just going to say it's an art focused project. It revolves around collecting, highlighting, and showcasing digital art.
Okay.
I know it's vague. I'm gonna be able to share more in the short future, I hope. But yeah, this discussion went super fast. Always a pleasure talking to you. I know we're on the same mind. We have the same mindset on many things, especially on art. Really, thank you for having me. It was great. It was great.
My pleasure. We'll have to do it again once your project is out there, and we'll keep track of what has happened since.
100%.
Thanks so much, Yanis. Have fun in Marfa, and yeah, let's stay in touch.
Always. Thank you very much. Have a great day.